Yo, what's going on YouTube? In this video, me and Bassis, we go over scouting our base, understanding what our base is telling us and how we should open, versus also scouting the opponent's base, understanding what their map's telling them to do, and what openings they're going to do. We also go over a lot of general theory and just a bunch of knowledge is talked about. So hope you enjoy. Like and subscribe. Peace.
And then you also need to be looking at wood lines. So do you have close wood lines? Do you have far wood lines? Do you have only one wood line? Is it a far single wood line? Like, these are important questions because these kinds of things can dictate the way that your map is set up as the game progresses, and it's going to dictate how aggressively you're going to have to play. If you have back stone, back gold, back berries, and like 6 wood lines, then you're straight chilling and you can just go like wall FC and your opponent's going to die because that's kind of just how that goes.
Right.
But if you have, let's say, a forward gold and you're a meso civ and you only have 2 wood lines and one of them's kind of far away, maybe you want to open men at arms so that you can bring the aggression to your opponent and take that time to secure your own base.
Okay.
So these are important questions you need to ask yourself when you're scouting your own map. So I'm going to keep going for now.
All right.
So we're still looking.
And you also gotta like take into like your opponent too, correct?
Yep.
And like
It's
most
not
likely
the
opening
best.
that they're gonna take.
Yeah, it's not great to just assume you know what your opponent is going to go
Gonna
for.
do right.
And you also shouldn't decide your strategy usually before you scout their base, because how open your opponent is can also decide like how aggressively you need to play. Like, if your opponent has a really open map, maybe you want to play more aggressively. And if they have a closed map, maybe less so if you want to like match an FC or something. But it's very, very game dependent and civ dependent. So we're going to take our wood line. Also, when you're scouting with your scout and your sheep, you want to scout in like concentric circles. So you don't want to be scouting areas that you've already scouted.
Scouted, right?
Yeah. Another thing is, hopefully by the time you're taking your first boar, you found both of your boars. And if you have, you want to take your front boar first.
Right. Yeah, I know that. For laming, right?
Yep.
Friendly reminder here: hit the like button. Now I heard somewhere as well, like if like your first wood line, like if you're gonna do 3 per se, like to try to maybe keep it on one side in case you get drushed.
Sorry, wait, say that again?
So like say like you only have 3 on wood, right? And like if you put all 3 on one side, it helps better to like prevent a drush doing any effect, because you can kind of fight the militia or whatever.
Well, yes and no. The thing with that is you're gonna have some inefficiencies than if in comparison to having 1 and 2. It's very unlikely that your opponent would be able to get a drush timing in to the point where like you're only gonna have a few villagers.
Right.
On 3 villagers on wood. So another thing. So where are you looking right now?
By the wood, berries, and the 2 houses.
Okay. So once you take your borin, you build. I build 2 houses. I know some people build 1 and then send another villager later, but I just build 2. So what I like to do is build 2 houses in a way that helps to start walling my map, and is also either A, near my second boar, or B, near the berries. Because if your houses are, let's say we're walling the front with our houses, where are we going to send that villager?
You gotta send a bunch of idle time backwards. Okay. Exactly. I have a problem doing that. Like when I send my first house build, whatever, I tend to send them just towards the front to start that wall. And it's never not because it's close to berries or a boar or anything. It's just because it's towards the front of my base, and I'll just start walling that off.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably going to end up needing to wall everything anyway. So,
but it's just more efficient. You're going to have to wall over here anyway, right?
Improving your Dark Age efficiency is like really, really huge, because it's going to, those small things cascade. So if you have a few seconds of idle time at the beginning of Dark Age, and then you have a villager that's walking all the way to the front and then all the way back, that's food lost, and that can potentially hurt your uptime. And if you're a civ like Saracens with no eco bonus, you're actually kind of stretched on certain builds. So being able to maximize your Dark Age efficiency is really, really important.
Okay. So okay, and another one, because I've seen it differ in different build orders. So after you send 3 to wood on like a scouts build per se, I typically go towards the boar and continue that same motion like I normally would, like with 4 villagers. But I seen also like Harris got him on his build orders and stuff where he sends 1 more down to like the boar or the sheeps or whatever, and then goes to the boar and then goes to the houses and mills.
So for
like I accelerate by 1 villager. Like I send 3 to wood, and then I send 1 to house, and then send 1 to mill. But like build orders I see is they send 3 to wood, then they send 1 more to the sheep underneath TCs, then they send to the boar, and then houses, and then mill.
I mean, that's kind of getting down to like the nitty gritty. This is just like the build that I've used. But in general, 3 on wood is for scout builds or for straight FC, and 4 on wood is for some sort of barracks opening.
Barracks or archers, right?
For archers, you can actually go 3 on wood because you don't need your barracks to come up like super early. You can add the villagers a little bit later.
I didn't know that.
Under TC you have 7 builds, right? I actually don't know. I don't know the build counts for any of this stuff. I just know the timings. Another thing is force dropping. So you shouldn't actually have to force drop with your villagers until you start to take your first boar.
Right.
And if you're force dropping your villagers while you're taking sheep, you're losing out on, it's like 6 food every single time you force drop, because that's 6 villagers getting 1 second of vital time each.
Okay.
So if you're force dropping repeatedly, that's actually vital time that'll then cascade to more villagers needing to force drop as you progress through Dark Age. Okay. So reduce force dropping as much as you possibly can. Okay. Like, look at your resources and look at the percentage that your villager is being researched and ask yourself, do I need to force drop?
Okay.
That also, like, killing your sheep under your TC is important in that regard. Killing your boar under your TC is important in that regard, because if you kill your sheep outside your TC, then the villagers are going to be walking, they're going to be bumping, that's more idle time. You're losing, like, it's, single digits worth of food, but that can matter when you have 8 villagers on food. And
you should also, like, I always have an issue, or not always, but I tend to have the issue to where, like, it's too close to the TC, and I can't get all my villagers surround the boar.
Oh, if it's like in the middle block
like
or whatever?
By where the stupid cannon is or something.
Yeah, so if you can get it like
right here in this opening in front.
The TC is a 4x4 grid, so if you can get it on like the outer 4, then that's the best place to kill basically anything.
Where I try to go.
All right, I'm gonna keep going now.
Yeah.
So, depending on how much food is left on your board, that'll determine like when you go for your next one. So I usually send a villager to a boar when I have about 100 to 120 food left on it, and then it'll come in.
Just in time? Okay.
Yep.
I always get nervous when it's this low and I haven't got the boar on the way.
Yeah, I think I'm actually a little late. So yeah, you can also see like, I'm actually a little bit late. You can see the scouting of my base. See how I've just scouted in like a huge circle around everything. So that gives me like really good knowledge of where I could wall, so I could wall like here.
With about 100 to 125 food left on it.
And I actually have a really nice map here, like back berries.
Right, yeah. This is very wallable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all your wood's forward though. I mean, we don't know if there's wood in that back corner, but.
Right. So right now we're at 18 pop, and so now we send 2 more vills to 1 lumber camp, and then 1 more vill to make a new one.
Okay.
Get loom, and then we'll be ready to cook up.
I think that's where I differ. I think I send more to the boar, and then I just send 1 more to the wood until I hit 21, and then I just send underneath the TC.
I mean, that's also fine. Like, there's going to be small variations in how people do builds, honestly. Right. Okay, so I found a boar right here, so I know my opponent's TC is around there. Oh my god. You all saw that I shift-clicked my villagers. We'll send with some weak ones, because we don't really care.
Yeah, the shift-click, I really feel like the shift-click's been doing something weird. Like, coming off of a boar, it doesn't go, like, exactly where you want it to, or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm going to say right now, my scouting's actually been really poor this game. I should already have my scout at my opponent's base and know what their game plan is.
Okay.
but I am actually late to it.
So you should be there before you click, or like at the same time you click, you think?
You should be there before you click. You want to be there around pop 17 to 18. So you want to send your scout out around pop like 15-ish.
Okay.
So barracks coming up, we're 50% of the way up.
Hit the like button!
One thing I'm actually really bad at is microing my barrier villagers. So we send one vill from under the TC to do it. See how I've got 5 villagers on 2 lanes. And then what I'll do is, as I'm approaching feudal age, 90% of the way up, I'll send a second villager out, and they'll build the stable.
With a 2-man stable.
And we queue up a villager. Get up. Hit castle or feudal, and we get both our eco upgrades.
Okay, so you get horse color too.
Yep. Super important. You want to, and with a clean build, like again, we have no eco bonus. You should be able to afford to. And then what I'll do is I'll start to slowly transition villagers to farms. Because again, you just want to, as much as possible, minimize
As quick as possible, yeah.
The amount of wood that you have floating. Because more farms seeded more quickly means you're gonna have faster uptime, which means you have better calculation power splits.
So why do you come? Why is there any specific reason why you sent this villager to come build this house over here instead of to like the left of your stable? No.
I should have built it to this left stable, honestly.
Okay.
But, yeah. So then we just keep going. So now I keep. I'll take a look. Oh my god, look at this one.
Yeah, I know. The AI they want all the eco.
And so what I'll do is I'll just look at the clock. We'll just patrol our scouts. We don't look at them. I look at the clock, and once I hit 14 minutes, we send villagers to gold.
Okay.
Oh,
So you work off the clock, not necessarily build count then.
Yes. So a lot of times people will ask like how many scouts you're supposed to make, and the answer is if you're able to do damage, you keep making them.
Okay.
So if your opponent is open, you can keep making scouts. If your opponent has a million spears out, you probably don't want to keep making scouts.
Just go ahead and cancel that.
But we'll have 5 scouts in total. Isn't it by 6 minutes you should be out scouting points?
How many?
Yeah, that's a good timing.
Like, what's a good amount? Like, because I typically go with like 3 per se, but I don't know. Like, what's the sweet spot for like attacking and killing a villager quick with a group of scouts? Is it 4 or 5 better? Or, I understand the higher the number, the better, but is there like a sweet spot?
So that's gonna depend on what your opponent is doing. So, say you're playing against men-at-arms, and your opponent is able to like attack you with a men-at-arms. You're gonna want to get your scouts out as quickly as possible and try and do counter damage, because scouts can never ever fight versus men-at-arms. Because your opponent's gonna get a forward spear, and like 3 men-at-arms and a spear can never be cleaned by scouts.
Okay.
So unless you have like an insane uptime, like say you're fucking 19 pop Frank scouts, you have a perfect build, you can then take an engagement against the men-at-arms before the upgrades come in. But if you're like 21 pop scouts and your opponent goes for men-at-arms and a forward spear, you're not going to be able to fight that. You're probably going to be forced into a range. Or unless you're able to like wall up and stuff.
Right.
If your opponent is going scouts, it can be really good to keep your scouts at home and take the time to make sure your base is secure. If you're going scouts and you're up before your opponent, then you can send scouts forward, you can send spears forward, whatever, and try and force that. But like if you're up at the same exact time, it's usually good to just like try and secure your own base. And
that's funny, rival.
But again, it's not a hard and fast rule. That kind of thing is going to depend on.
Is there a certain number of villagers you put on gold before you hit wheelbarrow?
Yep, 5 bills to gold and 5. Wheelbarrow.
Okay, I think that's where I'm at. I typically only do 4.
Okay.
And it's like never really enough.
Yeah, and then we'll take 2 from berries.
Okay.
So
And then
those
2 to
two
farms.
we'll have a total of 7. Just keep going. I'm actually floating food. Did I build too many farms? I think I built one too many farms, actually. Make sure
105, man.
So I'm floating all this gold.
You
I'm
can
gonna get the
resign
gold
again.
mining upgrade. Might as well start researching it now. Or not all this gold, all this food. Who's the opponent? The opponent is the, I want to say extreme AI. We're just doing the build orders. Well, so we clicked Castle Age. This should be like a 19-minute castle or something. 19:30 to 20 minutes. I forget how long it takes to research Castle Age.
Okay.
It's like a little over 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. So at this point, there's a couple things that you want to be doing. One is dropping a second stable
up,
of
Macy?
Scouts and Knights,
Right.
and then you want to get your armor upgrade and bloodlines, as well as gold mining. But I got it earlier. And then, yes, you'll see kind of how I transition into Castle Age.
Toxic.
It's 160 seconds. Okay, so we're not gonna.
160 seconds.
Under 20 minutes then. That's bad. Oh, I got idle bill. That's cool. Let's send that guy back.
أمر نعم.
I wish I could fast forward this part of the game.
Yeah, no, there's nothing there. So the only thing I see here is just like you are floating so much food, which means like I guess like the 2 should have been on gold possibly instead of the 2 farms when you split the mill or the berries.
So
I mean,
I made 2 farms for those berry bills. I made
2 to gold, right?
2 to gold.
Right. And looking at it, and that made 17. So whereas maybe you should have been at 15. Would that be better? I guess it doesn't really matter.
No,
You're gonna spin the
this
food.
This is fine. This is fine. Because remember, you need 6 villagers per
Oh,
TC
wow.
for villagers, and then you need a little bit more for knights. And I'm also getting all these upgrades. So
Yeah,
see,
so
I
you
built
got all
this
your
stuff up.
upgrades and 2 nights, and you're out of food. Okay.
Exactly.
Alright.
So this is like an important part of the game. So we can go through this a little bit later, but when you're in Castle Age, you need to ask yourself, what is my opponent doing? And this is another time where it's like scouting is so fucking important.
Right.
Because when you're going to Castle Age, you want to be able to add some sort of complement to whatever you're creating that helps to counter what your opponent's doing.
Right.
So
For
we're 2 stable
competition.
knights. Things that you can add that your opponent could be doing are crossbows, or their own knights,
Right.
or unique units, and depending on the unique unit, we can add in a complement. So let's say our opponent is also going 2 stable knights. Adding in a monastery for monks is really, really strong,
Right.
because if you make 1 monk and you convert an enemy knight,
That's just
you
a
are
lot
up.
of resource value.
yes,
Right.
it's a 270 resource delta basically.
Right.
You invested the 100 in the monk, and then you killed an enemy knight, which is minus 135 for them, and you gain a knight, which is plus 135 for you.
We just become best friends.
Appreciate that follow, Brie.
That single knight can like completely change how a fight ends up going.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that big video from Spirit of the Law on that one.
Yeah, so the reason I like adding monks and not pikes into cav versus cav fights
You can
is
just
that,
run away, right?
well, if you're say you're going monks, how much do you need to invest into a monastery and monks in order for them to be effective?
It's literally just 275, right? 175 food and then 100 gold.
Yeah. So if you want to then go for pikemen,
Yeah, I don't know how much
What do you
pikeman
need?
upgrade is.
it's I think 215 food and 70 gold, and then you need armor. You need
It's
to mass
215,
them because
215
one
food
pikeman's
and
not gonna
90
do
gold, yeah.
Yeah, so like 1 pikeman's not going to do anything, so you need a bunch of them. Again, this is a food wood unit, so it's going to stifle your economic development slightly.
Right.
So, at least in my opinion, the best Castle Age complements that you can do are either monks, siege workshop, or university and ballistics. If you're like going crossbows. So monks are good if your opponent's going knights and they've gotten armor. So say you're going crossbows, your opponent gets up before you because they're going scouts into knights. That's a builder that gets up before like archers into crossbow.
Right.
You see them get the +2. Go
Ballistics
for monks.
and monks, yeah.
Go for monks, yeah. Because ballistics, like crossbow with ballistics, won't do enough damage to like even kill the knights. Whereas if you can convert 2 knights and then you can make your own meat shield, then you can take like a really, really good fight.
Right.
Siege workshops are really good if your opponent. So say you're going crossbows and your opponent goes skirmishers. Mangonels can be really, really good there.
Right.
They're also good if, say, you do damage to your opponent in feudal age and you're able to maintain map control, and then you want to push in castle age.
Right.
So you go. Let's say you're going scouts into knights. Your opponent's not walled. You've killed 6 villagers. You killed like all their wood villagers. It was sick. You get up. Your opponent's not even close. You get your knight upgrades, you make your knights, you send your villager forward, and now you've got siege pressuring your opponent who's in feudal age. Even if they get up to castle age, what do? You've got knights and mangonels knocking on the door. So mangonels are really good for then, pressuring and as well as defending from enemy ranged units.
Right.
Scorpions are good for that as well because they take only 1 damage from a ranged unit, whereas mangonels take 2, I think. And then university plus ballistics is good if you're crossbow versus crossbow because it just lets you win fights.
Okay.
But yeah, this kind of stuff is like really much so in the it depends category.
Right.
So, as you can see right now, I hit castle age at just under 20 minutes, and I have a villager queued, bowsaw, heavy plow, armor, and 2 knights.
Literally everything that you want. You got heavy plow, bowsaw. You got both your stables producing and your TC producing, and you're getting the blacksmith producing. Yeah.
So what I would probably end up doing here is I would send my next 4 villagers to gold.
Okay.
And then send the next 4 villagers to gold. Let's say I want to drop a monastery. So let's drop a monastery. And then I'll start to add TCs.
Okay.
It's important to add TCs in eco when you have like map control and you're actually able to. If your army gets wiped and you're going up to castle age, you might not want to just straight up add TCs because your opponent can then mass military and walk around and just fucking kill you.
Right. Because like right now, you've got enough to pretty much drop 2 TCs.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't.
Can I produce from 3 TCs and 2 stables?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you just pause it out for a little bit.
Yeah. So let's go back.
This is why I think also why like I was best with Lithuanians, right? Not only just the extra 150 food helped me not idle my TC or my scouts. I was always going to a monastery first out of a point, and that also delayed my TCs and stuff.
And monks are good too. Like monks, honestly, a great way to think about monks is as a resource unit. Because if you have a monk and you heal a knight that was at 1 HP, you've basically gained 125 resources. Yeah. And if you pick up 2 relics, those can generate thousands of resources over the course of the game.
Right.
And those kinds of like small things can those things really add up. So let's do it again, but you're gonna do it.
All right, let's do it. All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe.